Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're reading another new anecdote for Reverse 1999. I'm actually kind of excited for this one. Our character this time around is Getian. He's something like a harpy from China. He's a really chill and cool character. So if I recall correctly, his species leaves only bones behind when they die. They collect them and bring them back to a sort of vault, and they can read the history of the bones, so it's kind of like an archive of the person's memories. Unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, Getian is the last one of his kind. I'm not really sure what his anecdote's going to be about, because his side story in the event he came in was pretty thorough about exploring his character. Oh, also, I think he was our first case of seeing translation arcanum used.
I have cast an incantation on you. It allows us to communicate and exchange our names as the code of etiquette requires. I'm Getian.
As you can see from his mini profile here, he's pretty old. He's very chill, very wise, but also very bird-like.
I seem to have mistaken an arcanist for a scarecrow and rested on his shoulder. I have found some shiny and peculiar items nearby. Help yourself to see if there's anything useful. I didn't know my unintentional action had brought the lost items back to their owners. Please open the window for me. I wish to stretch my wings and have some fresh air. Thank you.
I'm pretty certain that I cannot pull off a voice that smooth, but we're gonna give it a try. A song once heard. Oh, it's got the node format. They switch things up so much now. Part 1, a story told by candlelight. For those who master the art of music, humanity has no shortage of praise. One especially exaggerated claim goes as follows. When the most skilled musician performs, even phoenixes will land gracefully upon his shoulder. Fragments of quiet conversation are swallowed by the darkness. Fortunately, there is still a single candle. Light it up. Under its dim glow, the storyteller's face slowly comes into view. In every way, he is an ordinary young man, the flickering flames reflected in his eyes. There are far too many humans like him in this world. Some grow accustomed to lies, others hold loyalty as their creed. At times, they prize their own lives above all else. At others, they sacrifice them for reasons unknown to anyone. Truly inscrutable. Once upon a time, there was an incredibly gifted Getian player. I'm probably going to be saying that word again, so let's look it up. It's Getian. Once upon a time, there was an incredibly gifted Getian player. One spring, he sat alone beneath a parasol tree and played a newly composed piece. It was his life's proudest work, only it lacked a proper ending. The listener seems unimpressed. Noticing this, the musician clears his throat and unconsciously drops a hand to his side. A moment later, as if touching something reassuring, he speaks again. When the piece ended, the Getian player looked up and saw a bird-like immortal with a human head standing before him. "Why do you stop playing?" he asked. The Getian player replied, "This is as much as I've written. I'm not sure how to continue." "Then allow me to complete it," the immortal said, "and together we shall create an unrivaled score, the likes of which the world has never seen." The candlelight is too dim to reveal the listener's face, but the musician does see a finger idly tracing circles on the tabletop. Okay, so the thing about Getian is that because he's a harpy, he doesn't have human hands, just wings. So far too many humans like him, Getian's not the storyteller. The listener has fingers, so he's not Getian either. Another cliched story, another tale of a frustrated human yearning for the unreachable, hoping for the day an immortal might lure their gaze upon them. How laughable. How dull. I can prove it to you. Perhaps this time will be different. A faint rustling sound. He places something from his side onto the table and slowly pushes it into the candlelight. It's a Getian. An aged Getian covered in fine cracks. The lacquer is old, but under the light it holds a shine that can only come from years spent in careful hands. Its strings tremble faintly as if an unfinished melody still breathes within them. The musician then slides over a small knife. The listener accepts it absent-mindedly, turning it over in his hand. A rather fine Getian maker's knife, with a plain, sharp blade. Try cutting the strings. The listener taps the top of the table with a knife handle in response. He extends his hand. The blade pauses on the strings. A flick, then a slash. Tap to cut the strings. Oh, there we go. It worked. Utterly unexpected. A soft gasp leaves his lips as he leans in for a closer look. The strings are no ordinary black silk. Their hue is a pale blue-gray, with a texture resembling feathers. They shine with a faint silvery light in the candle's glow. The immortal and the Getian player became fast friends. Admiring his new companion's talent, the immortal stayed in the human world. Using his arcane skill, he altered the bones of the Getian player, along with his fate. From then on, the Getian player's life flowed as smoothly as a stream, and his name spread far and wide. Yeah, there's also that aspect about the bone thing. I didn't remember if he could, like, divine people's futures from it. It's been so long since Getian was involved in anything. Altering one's fate through the changing of bones. The listener straightens up. He has heard such outlandish rumors before. Perhaps there is some truth behind them after all. Here before your very eyes are strings fashioned from the feathers of the immortal. The listener waits for him to continue. A divine bird descended from a mountain, a gifted human, a reshaping of destiny. It's a good story. This musician might just be the one he's been looking for, but is he good enough? Can his talent capture the attention of a divine bird? Under his audience's curious scrutiny, the musician takes a deep breath. This is not the first time he has told the legend of the Miamong, and it will likely not be the last. The Getian player in that story was my ancestor. Like old friends. Ooh, hazy. The rain does not stop until nightfall. The dark clouds disperse and the moon makes its quiet ascent. In its light, a single drop of dew slides down a slender leaf, inching its way toward the tip. Okay, now I have to try to do Getian's voice. This is the place. This is the place. The Miamong draws in his wings and lands in a clearing halfway up the mountain. Last year's fallen leaves are soaked with dew, the new grass beneath yet to grow in. It is as soft as a blanket. Cross the path and the shabby hut is right ahead. Shabby hut, a plain, low-thatched hut, with a few slabs of blue stone weighing down the ridges of its roof. It belongs to one of Getian's kin who descended the mountain before the two ever met, never to return. Now it has been made the home of a human musician who wandered into the mountain by chance. With a lift of his wings, his bone staff floats lightly into the air and taps at the door. Yeah, he can kinda just control that with telekinesis. I guess because it's made of bone. Above the last pitiful dregs of firewood, the musician sprinkles the crushed tea leaves into water drawn from a mountain stream, even though the water only boiled once. The flame in the small clay stove slowly dims. He sighs and places down a pair of ceramic cups he fished out from some corner. They're charmingly antique. Not of recent make. He fills them with the tea. A cup is pushed toward the visitor. Thank you. The Miamong does not drink tea, yet still extends a wing to pull the cup closer. On a chilly spring night, the touch of warm water has a way of settling the heart. The aroma of this tea seems different from before. The musician moves the tea set aside and sits down across from Getian. Though you live in the mountains, you seem far more familiar with the lands below than I'd expected. I have indeed heard a thing or two. Getian cautiously inhales, fresh but with a hint of bitterness. Curious. Perhaps because everyone brews it to their taste, he thinks. The Miamong's fairy news from below, along with the latest tools and techniques. Thus, I have some knowledge.
I know very little of it.
I know very little of it. I have never ventured there myself, though. I can hardly claim familiarity. The Miamong shakes his head and changes the subject. Has your instrument been repaired? Following his gaze, the musician looks at the plain Getian at his side and gently presses a hand against the strings. There are no materials in the mountains. It will have to wait. A lamentable shame. I had hoped to play something for you. Pay it no mind. Your bones have healed well. I dare say your departure from this mountain is approaching. Yes. He stares absently at the wavering candlelight. Crack. In the silence, the lonely wick flickers and crackles. The faint sound startles the musician, returning him from his momentary stupor. He immediately smiles and turns toward Getian. I've been posed for too long. Should I stay any longer, I fear I'd be overstepping. The mountains are pleasant, but they are not where I belong. When I arrived, the river was still frozen. But spring has likely arrived in the lands below by now, and the flowers along the Paline River should be in bloom. If I leave now and catch the east wind along the river, I might still make it back before summer. Perhaps even in time to ask a woodcutter for a fine piece of parasol wood. And what of your search for that legendary score? Will it continue? The musician shakes his head. This candlelight is far too dim. Would you mind brightening it a little? Brighten! That's better, thank you. He glances at the candle, quickly looks away, and then smiles once more at the Miamong. The score. Ah yes, that was why I came into the mountains. The day you saved me, I watched the sky grow darker and darker, heard the howling of wolves surround me. With a broken leg and my instrument clutched in my hand, all I could do was sit beneath a tree. Even then, my thoughts were fixed on that legendary score. Even if the wolves came to tear me apart, I'd hoped they'd spare my hand so that I might at least continue to play. Obsessive. Oh, how I wished for an immortal to descend from the heavens at that time, like your kin who once gifted my ancestor that score. To humans, the Miamong might as well be immortals. Arcanists with human faces and bird bodies. They dwell deep in mountains no ordinary mortal can reach, blessed with long lives. Yet what truly awes and tempts is their ability to alter one's bones, and with it one's fate. There is no need to name us as such. Miamongs are no different from humans. We too will one day fade away. But to me, this truly is the blessing of an immortal. In the candlelight, the musician spreads his hands. His fingertips and palms are thick with calluses. Though I never found the score, these hands were spared. That alone is thanks to you. The Miamong gives an uneasy shake of his feathers. Fine. Call it what you will. The musician smiles at Getian. But now that I think of it, after searching for so long, the score is probably not in the mountains. Or perhaps I'm simply not destined to find it. Such things can't be forced. Besides, I've already met an immortal on this journey, just as my ancestor once did. When I return and compose a new piece, who knows? It might be even greater than that one. The Miamong thinks in silence, his talons lightly tapping the ground. You have made up your mind, so be it. But the path is dangerous at night. Come dawn, I will see you down the mountain. However, there is still one place amid these peaks that may hold clues about the score. Since you will leave tomorrow, perhaps you might come tonight and see for yourself. I'm actually on a roll with Getian's voice. I didn't think I could do it. Part 3, Echoes from the Mountains. Oh, what's this? Perhaps some tremors still linger in the mountain, enough to gather into a melody. Short tune fragments remain in the score left in the mountain. Spend points to unlock fragments. Every note is worth a different number of points. Fill the fragment with notes. The fragment unlocks when you've accumulated the required number of points. Okay. Tap notes to fill in fragments and unlock the short tune's melody. Okay. Oh, I see. Hang on, did the last two play at the same time? It kinda leads from me into soul, which I can't do from this. Part 4, Footsteps in the Snow. On this early spring night, in which the ice and snow have already melted but new greenery has yet to grow, it is quiet and lonely. The musician carries his Getian on his back, following Getian along the mountain path toward the temple. From afar, they look like two sprigs of duckweed drifting in a boundless sea. Records of the Miamong clan's history since their arrival in the Central Plains are kept in the Temple of Getian. If an archived copy of the Lost Score still exists somewhere on the mountain, it may well be there. Oh, that's the bone archive I mentioned. The candlelight is barely bright enough to illuminate the ground beneath their feet. Even with the Miamong leading the way, the musician looks somewhat ragged, the night dew soaking his sleeves as he pushes through the waist-high grass. When Getian stops once again to wait, the musician speaks up, apologizing.
I'm sorry.
You saved my life, for which I'm already deeply grateful, and I'm causing you even more trouble. It isn't right of me to put you through so much. Saving others is but a simple gesture. I never thought to ask anything of you in return, but you shared something with me I never expected. By that logic, it is I who owe you. Something you never expected? The musician ponders for a moment, then taps his head in realization. Oh, your kin who once dealt with my ancestor. After all these years, you still remember him. I suppose you were close?
No.
Not really. Then at least old acquaintances?
No. Never.
No. Never. You can't mean you were complete strangers. The Miamong gives a slight nod. We never met. Well, Getian extends a wing, brushing aside a clump of white kogon grass blocking the musician's path. I am simply curious why he, or rather they, descended the mountain. I have read every word of every record in the temple, yet found nothing of the answer I seek. The Miamong tilts his head toward him. You come from the lands below. I'd like to hear your answer. I see. The musician suddenly understands. After you mentioned it last time, I gave it some more thought. To a Miamong, centuries may pass in the blink of an eye, while the world down below has changed beyond recognition. After so many years of retelling, the details of the story are bound to become unclear. What I've shared is all I've heard. As for any further details, I truly don't know.
At least...
Still, from the perspective of those below, what the story describes does make sense. He pants as he climbs another stretch of steps. Humans may differ in temperament and appearance, but in the end, everyone living in this world wants for something. That never changes. Some seek power, some seek wealth, some seek generational fame, others seek everlasting glory. What's the difference between those last two? I guess family recognition versus personal recognition, and of course some seek a peerless score. He can't help but smile, pointing at himself. I risked my life climbing the mountain for it. If your kin truly lingered in the human world for the same reason, that would be understandable. Of course, this is just a superficial view of a mere mortal such as myself. And you, I mean immortals, do they also have things they seek? This time the Miamong does not correct his choice of words. Very well. Since you've spoken frankly of your own matters, I shall also be truthful with you about my concerns. The musician lifts his head to look at him. The moonlight casts its silver glow on the Miamong's face, lost in thought. Like humans, Miamongs develop different dispositions over the years. Let's go with this one. Some were quiet and reserved. One had a favorite camphor tree. On moonlit nights, Getian would see him standing silently on the highest branch, wings outstretched. Getian assumed he likely wouldn't leave, and others were excessively curious. I knew one who would bring back all manner of human oddities from the lands below. Oddities that would enrapture him day and night. Passing by his dwelling, Getian had thought to himself, sooner or later. Due to your decision, you've grown more confused. And some Miamongs were mischievous and fond of pranks. One such bird loved to laugh. Getian can't recall his face, only his cackling when he startled his kin by suddenly flying up from below a cliff. Later, they all descended the mountain, never to return. All I recovered were their bones. Bones that gave me no answers.
However...
I read of where they went after leaving the mountain, whom they met and the places they passed, but the Miamong hesitates, his feathers trembling slightly. I still don't know why they left. It doesn't sound completely unsolvable though. The musician pushes aside a clump of mugwort and takes a deep breath. He smiles at Getian. Life in the mountains may be peaceful, but your kin must have longed for something important deep in their hearts. Important enough to give up their longevity. Longevity. For those below the mountain, it is often a pursuit. But to your kind, it's merely a bargaining chip to be exchanged. Yeah, it's time they can easily trade away, to satisfy any curiosity they may have. In the lands below, some work to preserve life through any means, no matter how shameful. Yet there are also those willing to sacrifice themselves for something greater. As for what that something is, the musician thinks it over again and again, then shakes his head.
I'm not sure that.
Well, I am but a human from below. I can't possibly grasp how the Miamongs in the mountains think. He adjusts the Getian on his back. The instrument is nearly too heavy for him to carry. Fortunately, the temple is just up ahead. Echoes from the mountain. Here we go again. Some fragments contain existing notes. Existing notes cannot be removed, but they count toward the points. Okay. La? Ray? Did that play 2 at a time? Kinda sounds like it. Ah, it did. Cool. Wait, was that it? Oh, that was it. Wow. I didn't notice that 3 and 5 were just the notes. Part 6, the old tree in the yard. Light the candle. So this is the Temple of the Miamongs? Seeing the lights kindle before him, the musician pauses. It seems this place is not quite what you had in mind. The musician carefully steps around the layers of paper hung like drapes, almost tripping on the scattered scrolls strewn about the ground. Well, I must say, this is nothing like anything I've seen before. He notices a bone beneath the papers and is unable to hold back his question. This is the remains of your kin? The Miamong steps further into the temple, not looking back.
Exactly.
Correct. Is this a custom of the mountains? Handling them this way feels somewhat irreverent. The Miamong's voice comes from ahead. They are gone, but flesh and bone. Why fuss over it? His voice pauses, tinged with curiosity. Your concern tells me it is different in the lands below. How does your kind treat the dead? Well, we also have temples. In them, we gather the remains of the deceased, assess their deeds in life, and enshrine them. How do you assess one's deeds? The musician freezes again, unsure of how to answer, because the Miamong can just read their bones. How do we assess the deeds? By whether they benefited others or whether they served only their own aspirations. But can anyone but oneself truly know the nature of one's aspirations? How could others possibly judge such a thing? On such a night, in such a place, the Miamong's voice sounds eerily calm, echoing as if both near and far. This is precisely what troubles me. By your account, those who descended the mountain must have chosen to pursue their own aspirations. But how were they to confirm the purpose of their lives? On what basis? Basis? Now I really don't understand what you mean. Getian walks back a few steps, gesturing for his companion to look in his direction. On the way here, I told you of 3 of my kin. There's a scattered pile of bones. Getian picks one up. For perfecting principles. And then a second one. For humans' joy and sorrow. And a final 3rd bone. For the injustice of the world. The Miamong gazes at them in thought. Remarkable aspirations indeed, nothing like those of ordinary mortals. The musician murmurs, perhaps, but now, that is all but a moment from the past, and they have returned here, silent and still. If they had foreseen such an ending, would they still have made the same choice? You said you were willing to die for a score. To me, that notion is no different from that of my kin. I am curious how you came to your choice. So that's how you see it. To give everything for one's purpose in life is indeed a difficult thing to choose, and yet, to have the choice itself may be a blessing. In the mortal world, countless people live without freedom of choice. As he gives this vague reply, his gaze drifts absently out the window. The moon has begun to sink westward, and the sky has shifted from a shade of deep, inky black to dark blue. Dark blue skies are so pretty. Dawn is still some time away. He withdraws his gaze, clears his throat, and changes the subject. How are we to find clues about the score among all these scrolls and bones? I can't imagine we'll come up with much of anything. There's no need to worry. Just play something. The bones are gonna react to it? What? Please, your ancestor bonded with the Miamong through music. If any clues remain here, they will respond. A mountain wind blows into the temple, causing the hanging papers to rustle. The musician reaches out to hold down a scroll that is almost blown away, offering an apologetic smile to his friend. I'm afraid the damage my instrument suffered in the mountains hasn't been repaired yet. The Miamong thinks for a moment. I believe that can be resolved. I do not know what your instrument is made of, but whatever you need ought to be here in the temple. The gentle smile on his face slowly fades. Offer to repair the Getian. Getian's gaze falls on the musician's Getian. Perhaps my arcane skill can be of help. His lips move, but in the end, he only lets out another sigh. I appreciate it, but there's no need. I know how to repair a Getian. Bang. He unfastens the Getian and throws it to the ground. It lands with a heavy thud. Please believe me, I have no ill intent. What are you up to? Echoes from the mountain. We have la, me, and me, la. How different do those sound? Wow, wonder how that works. Part 8, He Who Has Gone Astray. In the dim light, the musician's hands clench, then loosen. I'm not descended from any great master. I am simply the son of a Getian maker. My family made a living this way for generations, but I'm a fraud. At times, the musician recalls the desolate gate of his hometown, the scent of bamboo leaves and parasol wood, and similar memories that scatter away like wood shavings. Under the shaded eaves, his father once told him the tale of their ancestor meeting a divine bird, and so he said he wished to learn how to play the Getian. His father laughed, then gently stroked his hair. He did indeed have hands suited for the strings. Back then, they called him Little Phoenix, and he was doted on like a beloved princeling. But his father left far too early. All that truly remained for him were a few absurd stories, ambitions with no clear direction, and a parasol Getian missing its strings. As you can see, I can't really play the instrument. Not properly. I know the materials of the strings and soundboard well enough, but I never had the chance to spend much time learning to use them. The young fraud took stock of all he owned. The story was well prepared, and the parasol was a rare piece of fine wood. All that was missing was a miracle people could believe in. The musician found a Western merchant who sold arcane materials and discovered that miracles were cheaper than he thought. Fireproof cloth, the mane of a divine steed, and silk as tough as jade. Tap to string the instrument. And the Getian was complete. Once so beautiful, it almost looked as if it were really made from a divine bird's tail feathers. I left the village like that, with the Getian slung over my shoulder and the maker's knife my father left me strapped to my waist. The Miamong is a little surprised but does not interrupt. There are always people willing to pay a hefty price to glorify their households with stirring legends. So the story was retold from his lips 1,000 times, polished into something extraordinary and complete. And yet, that instrument has remained forever silent. An immortal's blessing, a peerless score, a prodigious young musician, nights filled with hesitation, a childhood like a drifting tumbleweed, worries tangled and knotted like rope, a story that charged onward or a real life. The musician can only have one of them. On many nights he dreams of the past. When he wakes, phantom strings tremble softly, sadly below his pillow, a reminder that they are still still waiting. Perhaps one day he will finally give in, reach out, and touch those strings that do not truly belong to him. Sometimes I think how wonderful it would be if divine birds truly existed, if I really were a man favored by an immortal. Getian lowers his gaze slightly. Birds that can change a person's fate do indeed exist, yet for a Miamong, this is a melody that can only be played and cherished once. Then someone actually believed the story. They forced me to climb the mountain and find a Miamong for them. I see. When I first met you, I saw in your bones that you were hiding something. Now it is clear.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I didn't want it to be like this, but I had no other choice. He stammers as he explains. I never truly harbored any malicious intent. The Miamong lowers his head to meet his gaze. The musician's voice grows quieter. I was conflicted. I know not to repay kindness with betrayal, which is why I asked to go down the mountain. I was afraid that if I stayed any longer, I'd begin having thoughts I shouldn't have. Please, let me go down the mountain. I won't come back, and I won't tell a soul that I ever met you. Very well. At last, the Miamong calmly looks away. In the end, you never truly acted on your falsehood. You're not angry? Those below the mountain are all much the same. Tossed about, uncertain. There is little that is fixed. I saw how you would choose. Besides, what you just spoke of was not entirely fabrication, although perhaps you did not realize it. He lays his wings over the body of the Getian, falls silent for a moment, and begins another story. Long ago, there truly was such a Miamong. A wisp of pale smoke slowly rises. A tune that lingers. Come on, there we go. In a time long ago, so long that his kin still lived on the frontier, human cities had yet to appear in the Central Plains, and powerful humans and arcanists still walked the world, not yet reduced to legend. The Getians, the Miamong clan, created the first song and dance. The music of the Getian comprises 8 songs. Carry the people, the swallow, nourish the green, raise the 5 grains, honor the way, exalt the divine, trust the earth's virtue, and bring all things to fullness. From that point on, countless Miamongs bore the gift of music. Among them, there was one who was especially intoxicated by rhythm. He lost himself in the music, rarely associating with his kin. Time in the mountains is long and without seasons. I could not tell when he left. To a Miamong, 1,000 years pass in a moment. No matter. The Miamong sighs softly. For such a lifespan as his, 1,000 years and a single moment were nigh on the same. To me, it is the same. Due to your decision, you've grown more confused. Until one day, convinced he had learned every score the mountain could offer, he ventured down alone to see whether human music held any worth. He must have been disappointed, the musician says quietly.
Exactly.
Yes, he was disappointed. A human life spans barely 100 years. Strip away the days of ignorant youth and helpless old age, and what remains is only a few fleeting decades. Within that time, one must still endure the difficulties of worldly affairs and endless hardships, a struggle simply to survive. Time that can truly be devoted to oneself is scarce. Even if one pours their entire life into music, it can never be compared to the Miamongs with their incredible lifespan. That is what life down below is like. As the seasons press on, life only grows harder. The Miamong pauses as if gathering his thoughts. He went to many places and saw all manner of people, bustling markets. 2 masters of the age agreed on a musical duel on the city walls with their pipas, drawing a great crowd. The sound was earth-shattering and sky-rending indeed, yet the Miamong remained bored, believing that something was still missing. Banquets of princes and nobles? Amid the rush of dignitaries and the drawing of curtains, the tinkling of crystal and pearls filled the air. On a rooftop not far away, the Miamong watched with a tilted head. A man in a tall crown rose from his seat, bowed deeply, then lifted his head and played the Getian, less a song than a soliloquy of grievances. When the melody properly began, an uproar broke out among the guests. Someone drew a sword, another turned away with a weary sigh. Before the turmoil reached him, he turned and left. This was the poise of scholars, not the devotion of a musician. In households where music was passed down through both instrument and song, the Miamong recalled a towering courtyard tree, an arm span thick, much like the one near his mountain dwelling. It was a lonely courtyard filled with the scent of herbs. Its owner often sat there holding a Getian, unmoving until the moon sank in the west. The Miamong heard the owner's faint sigh. What a pity, so brief after all. He thought, if heaven had granted her 30 more years, perhaps things would have been different. And at first light, he left that verdant courtyard behind. A light breeze passes, and the candle flame suddenly wavers, bringing the musician back to his senses. You mean, he never altered a human's bones? He murmurs. Of course. Immortals have their own affairs. Why would they concern themselves with the lives of mortals?
No.
That was not the case. Years later, the Miamong resolved to return to the mountains, feeling his worldly travels were finished, only to encounter a torrential downpour that covered the land in darkness and turned plains into rivers. So he stayed one day longer. The next morning, beneath a parasol tree, the Miamong met a young man in passing and heard a short tune he had never heard before. The melody was free and wild, hardly a proper composition, yet it brought tears to his eyes. Unable to resist, the Miamong stepped forward to speak with him. The youth humbly said he had no talent for music, and that he simply enjoyed plucking the strings for amusement during idle moments. He asked the young man's background and learned that he was just a local Getian maker. A Getian maker. A Getian maker. He repeats it twice under his breath, then suddenly stands up. If that's the case, how is it I've never heard of a great musician among my ancestors? If a Miamong truly altered his fate, why have we, generation after generation, done nothing but make Getian? Because it was just a simple tune. Utterly unremarkable. Utterly unremarkable. The Miamong couldn't help but drink in the phrase himself. What moved him was, in fact, something utterly unremarkable. There was no earth-shaking event that followed. The young man who played the Getian was destined to die young, and so the Miamong merely wished him a good life. And all his desires came true. That was all. But he still could not believe it. The music that drew an immortal's favor was nothing more than a casual trifle he himself could produce on a whim? If it was that simple from the beginning, then what was the point of all his fabricated achievements? Getian gives no immediate answer. Instead, he lifts the wing slightly, and the broken Getian, once treasure now tossed away, floats into the air. The dust is wiped away, and it is turned over, as if by an unseen hand, revealing the instrument's goose feet on the underside. Neither metal nor jade, they are made of some material that gleams with a soft luster in the candlelight. These are his bones. The Miamong left his remains to his friend, who fashioned them into a Gutian. In the candlelight, the musician's expression flicks and shifts. After a long moment, he speaks again. I understand now. You mean to say there's no need to strive for absolute perfection, so long as our hearts are sincere? Getian looks at him quietly, neither confirming nor denying it. The truth is clear to me now. The music my ancestor could play, I can play too.
Please.
If that's the case, then could I stay in the mountains? Life below is noisy, cluttered, and distracting. I know where I went wrong now. I just want to find a quiet place to devote myself to my instrument, as I did when I was young. But your destiny is not here. Getian tells him plainly. You came from the lands below, and in the end, that is where you belong. Yes, I should have known. He takes a step back, seemingly in a daze. After a moment, he gathers the courage to speak again. But after I leave the mountain, will fortune ever bring me to you again? I do not know. The Miamong thinks. There is nothing down below that draws my interest. Yet my kin from the story had no thought of descending the mountain either. As time passes, perhaps my thoughts will change. They look at each other, silent for a time. Only now does everything finally become clear. There is never any great musician, no score unheard by the world, and no ideal worth dying for. The young man who stubbornly chased such ideals to this place is only a petty fraud, though a harmless one at that. Dawn is about to break. The extinguished candle gives off a faint trail of bluish smoke.
Goodbye.
It is time for you to go. To be continued. The Long River. A cool drop of dew falls onto the musician's forehead, jolting him awake. He returns to his senses, and finds that he is already standing on the stone steps leading down the mountain. Behind him, the path leading up is choked with weeds, unrecognizable. The Miamong he spoke with is nowhere to be seen. Could it be that it was all just a dream? He feels the weight of his broken Gutian still resting on his back. He stands there quietly for a while, then turns to face the lush foliage of the mountain path and begins speaking to no one in particular. I will go down and find somewhere peaceful to stay a while. I've heard of a place nearby called Pei City, beyond royal authority, where both Arcanists and humans live. The musician pauses. From now on, I'll continue to study this instrument. Before that though, if I may have such fortune, I'd like to hear the piece my ancestor once played. He hesitates, holding his breath while he waits. There is only the sound of wind rustling the trees and grass. I understand. The musician murmurs, as if having reached a decision. He takes the broken Gutian from his back and carefully sets it on the stone steps. This instrument doesn't belong to me. It should be returned to its owner. If you are willing. Unable to finish the sentence, he shakes his head and bows deeply toward the empty air. Then he straightens up and makes his descent down the mountain without looking back. A shabby mountain hut. The Miamong's wings give a slight tremble as the newly repaired Gutian settles onto the table. The fracture has been properly mended with an arcane skill, leaving behind only a faint seam. It truly is a fine instrument. The maker must have been meticulous, polishing it again and again to achieve such perfection.
However...
Only, he lifts his wings once more. The Gutian floats into the air, revealing its underside. He narrows his eyes, noticing that the pair of goose feet is not perfectly aligned. Using bone for the instrument's goose feet is uncommon. Perhaps this is the reason for the maker's slight flaw. Or perhaps his heart was heavy simply because these were his friend's remains? He shakes his head. Regardless, I did not see the bones of the maker.
Why?
And you? What did you think? Getian asks the bones. They offer no reply. He lets out an almost imperceptible sigh. Left with no answer, he uses his imagination instead. Many years ago, on a spring night, a Miamong quietly descended the mountain, with no word to his kin. He traversed the mountains that seemed endless, crossed rivers that zigzagged and intertwined, past human villages from which came the barks of dogs and the crows of roosters. Like the divine birds of legend, he flew 99,000 miles. Yet he flew higher than the mountains where immortals dwell, and farther than the crimson clouds that top the peaks. Even the heaviest dew could not dampen his wings. Only when the sky darkened did he stop to rest on an ordinary parasol tree. The moon sank westward. Humans and Arcanists alike slept. The forests, the fields, the mountains and rivers, the entire world was fast asleep. Getian ponders. What exactly tempted him to stay? Perhaps... no, surely not for some mortal joy. Or perhaps... As if answering himself, he immediately denies it again. No, not even for that piece, or the one who played it. He looks down to the world below the mountain. The morning mist is not yet fully dispersed, but the silken trail of the Mainland River can already be seen glinting in the sunlight as it flows into the distance, toward unfamiliar towns, villages, lakes, and plains. Separated by a thin veil of mountain mist, life unfolds. Some are born, some die. Some laugh, some weep. So fleeting. So hurried, like morning dew, with more days gone than to come. Perhaps that is precisely why it is worth cherishing. The thought stirs his heart, beautiful and unforgettable. After a long while, the Miamong places the long silent Gutian before him once more. Beyond the mountains, a boat rocks upon the water. The musician suddenly springs to his feet and looks toward the mountains. Sir, did you hear that? Someone's playing a Getian. With this sudden movement, the small boat lurches violently, and the boatman stumbles. Hey, sit still! Don't go startling an old man like me! He clicks his tongue in annoyance and rows hard, steadying the boat. You must be hearing things. The Mainland River's running high today. Can't hear nothing but the water itself. The musician does not reply, his gaze fixed on the mountains. A moment later, he suddenly points ahead and shouts excitedly. No, sir, someone really is playing a Getian! Look to the bank over there! Even the birds have taken flight! The boatman cranes his neck to peer into the distance and sighs. The sun's out. Of course the birds are looking for food. What's so strange about that? But how loud could one person's playing be anyhow? You think it'd reach this far, and only you'd hear it? Maybe it's an immortal who's playing? The word slips out of him. The boatman cannot fathom what strange spell has come over this young fellow he picked up on a whim. Ain't no immortals in this world, unless you've seen one with your own eyes. He opens his mouth and sinks back down, defeated. He lowers his gaze to the shimmering surface of the Mainland River. He's gotta keep his promise. It's nothing. I must have imagined it. The boatman clicks his tongue again. All this silly chatter. Just tell me where you're headed. I want to go to Pei City. Pei City? And where's that? I've been around for more than 30 years and never heard of the place. Back at the hut, the story takes a different turn due to your choice. And yet, this is no illusion. A cool breeze brushes past the Miamong's wings and over the faintly vibrating strings. It is another very, very ordinary tune, hesitantly played for the first time. Whoops. Melody completed. Ooh, look at him. Okay, that was ending 2. Now let's go make the other choices. I take little interest in what goes on down below. Getian takes a cautious sniff of the tea before nudging it away.
No.
I take little interest in what goes on down below, but my kin left behind many records, thus I have some small knowledge. Grow more confused? The Miamong shakes his head and changes the subject. Has your instrument been repaired? I forget which one I picked here too. The last Miamong to descend the mountain in memory. Some were quiet and reserved. One had a favorite camphor tree. Oh. No, I made that choice before. I can't remember which one I picked, but I always remember the dialogue that came after. The first Miamong to descend the mountain in memory. Some were excessively curious. Wait. One would bring back all manner of human oddities from the lands below. Oddities that would enrapture him day and night. One would bring back all manner of human oddities from the lands below. Oddities that would enrapture him day and night. Passing by his dwelling, Getian thought to himself sooner or later. And some were quiet and reserved. One had a favorite camphor tree. On moonlit nights, Getian would see him standing silently on the highest branch, wings outstretched. Getian assumed he likely wouldn't leave. Okay, it's the same dialogue, but in a different order. So that's why I got so tripped up. Now for the Getian, let's wait quietly. The Miamong lowers his head, studying the musician's eyes. The wind flickers the candlelight, casting the musician's face in shifting shadows. After a moment, he lowers his head and sighs. Due to your decision, you've grown more confused. He unfastens the Getian and throws it to the ground. It lands with a heavy thud. Come to think of it, how many years have I spent in these mountains? The thought startles the bird. He turns his head and flutters his feathers a few times, as if to brush it away. Yet the doubt does not drift away with the feather dust. Instead, it clings like those irritating thorny fruits that grow wild in the mountains, catching and sticking to you before you even know it. The Miamong sighs softly. In any case, that Miamong's dedication to music was only natural. Until one day, convinced he had learned every score the mountain could offer, he ventured down alone to see whether human music held any worth. But after I leave the mountain, will fortune ever bring me to you again? Perhaps not. As you can see, the path of the Miamongs was cut off centuries ago. They left one after another, and now, Getian shakes his head. I am the last of my kind, and there's nothing down below that draws my interest, perhaps. Grow more confused. And it's all the same from there. So, let's go and make all the decisions that leave us confused. I take little interest in what goes on down below. The last Miamong to descend the mountain in memory. Wait quietly. To a Miamong, 1,000 years pass in a moment. And perhaps not. Alright, we're totally confused now. To the Long River. The story takes a different turn due to your choice. The Miamong lays his wings over the strings and remains silent for a long time. Down below. Finally, he puts the Getian away. The Miamong continues awaiting an answer. Perhaps one day, he thinks, it will be another spring, another winter's night, another utterly ordinary day. Somewhere else, he will hear another song and stop for it. There, he will find the answer he seeks. One day, he will encounter it. One day. That's the second ending achieved. Alright, that was a nice little anecdote, and it was a lot easier on my voice than I expected. I really didn't think I'd be able to read lines as Getian that well. I guess all the ones I've been doing so far had a lot of girl voices, so I kind of came to expect the strain associated with those. Yeah, not really much to say about that, that was just a nice little story. Getian's pretty interesting, because as you can see, he comes off as pretty wise, but also has a lot he doesn't understand. And part of that is just from the society he comes from. Like, some of the things people do just absolutely baffles him, but he's willing to be patient with people and learn. Well anyway, that's gonna be it for this anecdote. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos, and remember to leave a like while you're at it. Hope you have a great day. Cue the outro.